The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library. Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor. Today's topic is the dynamics of networking. And my guest is Dr. Tom Denham from Careers in Transition. Dr. Tom, you've been talking about networking for a long time.
Thank you.
And doing a lot of it.
Yes, and first of all, thank you for having me. But I agree, I think networking should be a lifestyle. There's some people that are really good at it and some people who completely dislike it. So we're gonna talk more about that today.
Yeah, we mentioned introverts and extroverts, and some people have to work a little harder,
right,
and overcome their innate shyness or whatever.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, how to do that.
So let's define networking. How would you define networking?
Well, if you look at computer networks, it's an interconnected web of terminals. So I would define networking as an interconnected web of human beings.
So if you just kind of map the humans of how they connect, you kind of have your network.
Right.
Okay.
It's a very simplistic answer. I'm sure there's more Webster's dictionary answer, but.
And I guess a follow-up would be, why is networking important?
A couple reasons. One is, first of all, let's take it from a career development standpoint. Networking is the #1 job search strategy. And in today's world, there really is no job security. I mean, if we're laying off postal workers and teachers and federal workers and state workers and people in multinational corporations where we thought there were safe jobs, you have to really network for life. So the only security you have is the security you create. Just recently, one of my friends got laid off, and he got a job within 2 months because he had been working in massaging his network. Networking is a lot of work, but it's the work that's worth doing. So networking has a lot of benefits, not only just financially in terms of job security and certainly as an entrepreneur getting more clients, but I love people, and I love learning from people, and I look at everyone as a subject matter expert in something. You have something to teach me about myself or about the library or something that you know. I know you've traveled a lot, and you've taught me about some of the places that you've gone to. So I look at everyone as a resource.
And then you could get diversity in there in that mix too. You've got different skills, and not just. I think sometimes people only think about diversity in terms of racial characteristics or gender. But there's a lot of other types of diversity, and sometimes we are prejudiced against people because maybe they don't like football or they seem shy or all kinds of things that might have nothing to do with their skill set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an athlete and I'm a mountain climber, so I have ice climbing partners, I have rock climbing partners, I have running partners, and they all teach me a little bit, and they teach me an incremental bit. So my network of all these athletes has really added value to my life. So the person, in my humble opinion, the person that has the biggest network wins when they die, because you're not only enriching your life, but you're also building friendships, and I think that's really important.
Well, in terms of that, I think people have heard a lot about 6 degrees of separation. And I wanted to go into that a little bit in terms of a network. The small world theory. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, one of the tools that I use when I'm managing my networks is LinkedIn, and we can certainly talk more about that. I've written some articles on it. And I have 2,500 people in LinkedIn, and we live here in Albany, New York. And one of the reasons why I behave myself on the Northway is because any one of those people is probably either I know somebody or they know somebody I know. They're either going to be a client, former client, or they're in that network. So especially in a small community like ours, I think you really have to behave yourself because we are all really connected. Even when I was in high school, we had our 30th reunion, and it was amazing how we were connected to other people in professions and businesses. So Yeah, there's a lot of advantages to networking, but again, networking is a lot of work. It's FaceTime, it's meeting people, it's having cups of coffee, it's going to nonprofit organizations and businesses and churches, and that takes time to have a network.
And I think we want to give some examples of how people can network better. I want to build a little more on the design, though. You started out with the computer model, which is really good. So we got, if it were a computer, you could say Google would be a hub in this network, and a lot of connections to Google, because every day we're Googling things, right?
Sure.
And then the small world theory, there was this famous research thing done to find out how many people you had to go to find somebody. What's the minimum amount or the maximum, however you look at it? How quickly could you get to anyone in the world? And that's where they came up with 6 degrees of separation. So by going from one person to 5 other people, you can reach anyone in the world, which is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, it really is interesting. For example, I had a student at Siena College who was an intern for Hillary Clinton. So that's how close
you know, and
I
I wouldn't know anybody.
Hillary.
I didn't know that I knew anybody who knew anybody that close to Hillary Clinton, but now I do.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's kind of the example, and I think maybe anybody who's sat in a seminar, and they used to do these tricks, and they would say, who in this room knows? You know, and you would pick a name, and almost always somebody would know somebody who knew somebody. It didn't matter who it was. Of course, if you're in a business sense, now it's a little easier. We don't have to find people in Ukraine or in Europe.
Yeah.
Your network doesn't have to go that far. So just imagine how few steps, like you're saying, people on the Northway are going to know you, very likely.
You know, you asked why should you have a network, why is it important? One of the things that I've learned as I go through the life cycle is anytime I have a problem or any problems that anyone has, it can be solved with people. So if I have an accounting problem, I have a CPA who does that. You know, if I'm going through a hard time, I have an inner circle of people that I can go to for emotional support. If I have a spiritual problem, I've got a network of people that can help me with that. You just have to have some foresight of having these people in your life. And in networking, we use a principle called givers get. So I'm constantly thinking about how can I add value to people's lives, either with a phone call, a text message, spending time with them, building relationships, giving them tips, advice, or most importantly, a lot of times when you're networking is listening. And I think that's a skill and an art that has gone out of style. And especially with the internet, there's a lot of talking on the internet, but there's not a lot of listening.
That really opens up the conversation a little wider. When we look at the structure and we see that there are hubs and there are connectors and you can reach anybody, and you think about driving down the Northway or up the Northway and all the 1,500 people that you just know on LinkedIn and all the other people that maybe that you haven't connected with on LinkedIn. So many possibilities. And then you think, okay, how do those relate? And I think the group aspect is important here. You go to chamber meetings, I know.
Sure.
And so you'll see some of the same people and some new people, but basically all the chamber members are likely to go there. And so that is kind of a clump of people, right?
That's right.
So once you hook in, they're all connected.
Right. One of the things I think we have to go back and say is, what are your goals? Networking, aside from the pure fact that you love people and people can add to your life, you have to think about what your goals are. And you're not here to use people, but people generally want to help others. So, for example, with my climbing, I'm trying to create a community of rock and ice climbers that can teach me, but also that I can take out and enjoy as well. The other thing I want to do is I want to take these people and introduce them to other people. So when I can't go out with them, they can go out as well. Just recently, I put 2 people together and they went out and they had a great time. I feel like I can take partial credit for doing that. So,
and they would appreciate that.
They would appreciate that, exactly. So,
and what did you get out of it? Nothing directly?
You know what I got out of it? I got some pictures that were posted on my Facebook page of them climbing together. And other than actual climbing, the second best thing is watching other people climb. and I've been to ice climbing areas where I've had a couple friends there, and when you're not climbing, it's just a joy to watch other people climb. And I found a lot of joy in being able to help those two people network, and maybe those people will bring in other people that I don't know into it. But you have to have a sort of an expansive view of this. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is the extroversion and introversion. In the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is a personality assessment, when you were born with these preferences. So you were either born with a preference for extroversion or a preference for introversion, and it's kind of like using both hands. So for us extroverts, it's very natural to even have a television show on networking, and we keep saying things, oh, this is great, be gregarious, go out, be social, but some of the introverts that may be watching this show may be saying this is a bunch of hogwash and I would never do anything like that. So I look at some people who are introverts in my life, and the way they network is they start with a very, very small group of people that they know well and maybe move out from there. You and I, we could go to a chamber event, walk in, not know anyone, and come out with 6 business cards because we've sort of made it a lifestyle.
Now, I guess the question you want to ask, because part of what you're talking about is ethics and part is psychology. I think in the beginning, you were talking about giving. It's about giving something and being expansive, but being positive for people and not just whining and asking for things. So that I think in a few people's mind, don't you think that there's a negative, that they're thinking, well, I can't ask for something? And they don't realize that networking isn't really so much about asking as it is about giving and building up what social network theorists call social capital. So you give things to people and you create this reciprocity feeling. Like if somebody gives me something, I don't want to be beholden. That's an old concept, but I'd like to give something back eventually. If my neighbor lends me a ladder, I really appreciate it, and I want to do something for him.
Sure. Well, I think you have to start with the giver's get principle. I'm a Methodist, and that kind of informs my decision making. When I get up in the morning, I come from a generous heart. I'm not looking for something, but in the back of my head, I just feel that the more I give away, the more I get. So you don't have to give somebody a ladder. You could be talking to somebody, and you may ask them, "What are you doing? What are you doing for fun this week?" And they go, "Oh, I don't know. We got to go to CVS, the post office, the bank. We got to do a lot of errands." And then I might say, "Do you like nature walks?" "Oh yeah, my wife and I, we love nature walks." "When was the last time you went on one?" "Oh, about 6 months ago." "Oh, we just don't have time for it." How about I give you 3 sample places that you could go to? Why don't you go to one, send me an email on Monday and see how it was. So inevitably they go, they send me an email, they sometimes send me a picture. That was a gift. It didn't cost me any money. What it cost me was my knowledge of doing that and thinking about how I could make their life better. Now, their life isn't going to be enormously better, but that was a way to give.
And I think when you said knowledge, that sparked, rang a bell or something in my mind, because a lot of times people want to hold on to what they have. Let's say you're a famous photographer or a famous ice climber, and you have secrets about how you do it, special things that you know. Well, the people who help other people and train them and teach them, they're not just losing something. They're really gaining a lot also, because it's not like they're going to take everything and be you and take over your job. It's more that they're going to learn a little bit from what you said and be grateful, and you're going to feel better, and you might learn from feedback from them as well.
I've written over 200 articles. Every single one of them is on the internet. People are still calling me to get an appointment to work with me. So I've basically, everything I know, I've already put it out there, but I don't look at it as, I'm only going to give 3 articles and you got to pay for the 197.
And some businesses do work that way.
And that's fine. That's not my philosophy of life. So I just give everything away, and the more I give away, the more I get. One of the other things is my daughter has a rare form of kidney disease called Alport syndrome, and so I'm raising money each year through my charity climbs to fight the disease. So I raise $5,000 a year. Because I have given so much to people, I'm getting money back. For not me personally, but for the foundation. And so again, the more I give, the more I get. And one of the things that we talked about is, you were mentioning about like taking from somebody. If you're giving all the time, I have no problem, asking somebody for something. I've gotten over that. The number one reason why people don't donate to nonprofits is they were never asked. If you ask, you will receive. People want to help you. If I said, Richard, I need this, this, and this, unless it was $3,000 for the Alport Syndrome Foundation, you probably give it to me.
That's more. If I said more than I'm comfortable giving.
Right. Do you know of 3 people I could talk to about a trip to Europe?
Absolutely.
About you and
what country are you going to?
You wouldn't even hesitate. You would just do it.
Right. I would need to know more where you want to go exactly. Are you traveling all around or? Right.
But you have to ask, and you have to be specific in your ask. So for example, when I'm teaching people about networking professionally, we start with, there's 3 circles of influence. There's the inner, the middle, and the outer circle. Okay, so if I have 2,500 people in LinkedIn, 2,400 of those people are in the outer circle. 80 are in the middle, and 20 are in my inner circle. These inner circle people, they've been with me for years and years and years. My best friends in that circle, they love me despite myself. So for an introvert, you might want to start from there and work out. And so, when it comes to my fundraising campaign, I'll ask the outer circle for $25, the middle circle for $50, and if you're in the inner circle, you're writing me a check for $100 to the Alport Syndrome Foundation.
Right.
So
for some people, $100 is not a big deal.
If you're in the inner circle, hopefully I've done enough for you that you're going to write me. You're going to write me that check.
With that in mind, I want to go back to the topology, kind of the how the networks are laid out, and just to think about this also, that you go to the Albany Colonie Regional Chamber, and you see a group of people, and they're all connected, and by being part of that, you're connected to this whole group. But then you could also go to the Colonie Chamber, and there's overlap, but there's also other people there. Now that doubles, or maybe not doubles, but it adds to your network, and maybe your church.
Sure.
Now you've got a whole nother way of looking at it. Yeah. So when people think about where they're going, they shouldn't limit it to one small group, but try to vary it so that they get into bigger groups.
Exactly. I wrote an article for the Times-Union, and it's on the internet, and people can find it. It's called 36 Sources of Networking Contacts. So
can we get through 6 of them?
Okay, so one would be the Albany Colonie Chamber of Commerce. Okay, one would be the church. Okay, so I have all these people that I know in the church, but they most of them don't intersect with the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And then I'm involved in the Consulting Alliance. And some of those people are a member of the chamber, and none of them belong to my church. I also have I have my ice climbing friends. I have my running partners, so I've got a circle or a community of those people. And some of these people are connected, and some of them are not. So one of the things I would do, especially for somebody who's job searching, is to go through this list. Could be professional associations, Rotary, service organizations, houses of worship. I went to St. Lawrence University. I'm in a club. I'm in the club of alumni.
So I think you're up to 7 already.
Yeah, I keep going. I went to Boston University, so I got that club. I mean, one of the things about going to an Ivy League school is you get an Ivy League degree, but you also get a Rolodex out of that. You tap into that network, and that's as equally valuable. So this article talks about all these different areas and I wrote out 36 of them so that people would be more expansive and realize, oh yeah, I am in like the Elks Club, and oh yeah, like for example, my daughter's in the Bethlehem Soccer Club. That's a circle. I spend 2 days a week with these people sitting on the sidelines.
And let's put that together with your trip up the Northway. How do you behave when you drive up the Northway?
55 in the slow lane.
Well, you don't cut people off anyway.
No, I don't, and I don't do anything rude or vulgar because everyone's connected too.
And that's how they know you. It's your brand. If Coca-Cola bottles started breaking and cutting your hand, you'd probably not buy them anymore.
One of the reasons why I take exceptionally good care of my clients is because I can't afford to have somebody go out and badmouth me. Because a satisfied client will tell 5 people, and a dissatisfied client will tell 10. And so, there have been situations where I've been in the most bizarre, I'll be up in the Adirondacks and I'll meet somebody, they're like, oh, you're Tom Denham, my friend worked with you, blah, 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 5 years ago. like, oh my, I hope I did a good job.
Right.
Right. So you got to bring your A game. Going back to the ask, I think it's really hard for us to ask for help. When we were young,
Many of us. I can do that. I have the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were young, it's like, Mom with this, or, I remember when Rachel was growing up, Dad, do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then, we get to a point where we think we can do it on our own. And I think, your network is there to bring your game up. And one of the things I've learned about climbing is that you don't get to the top of a mountain or a sheet of ice or top of a rock formation by yourself. There's always somebody that's either got you on the rope or is coaching you, encouraging you, and that's one of the purposes of the network. And when you get better, your job is to make other people better. So I look at it as sort of a coaching relationship, a mentor relationship too. I mean, a lot of people have been mentors to me, running partners. One of my ice climbing partners taught me a whole lot this year about some things, and I was very grateful. And I was thinking, well, what can I do for that person? How could I repay the favor?
As you're drawing this out and listing different groups and parts of your network, and it makes one realize that, in a way, networking is what holds our country together and what should hold the world together. There's certain people that are very difficult to network with, such as right now the ISIL, or some terrorist group. You can't really do much. You kind of give up. But all the parts that are working, I think, are being held together by networking.
You have to come with a generous heart. For example, this show. I'm giving to you. I'm providing content. I may be teaching you something, and you get something for your viewers, and I may get a client out of this, or I may be able to take this show and share it with my other clients. So it's mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. But we wouldn't want people to think that every interaction has to be mutually beneficial. There's a lot of times where we feel good just helping someone. And I think that's a good place to go. Maybe next. We touched on it before about, well, I'm not going to ask somebody out in this part for $1,000 for something they're not really dedicated to themselves, but I might ask them for 30 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about how you think about what to ask for. Who. You don't go up to the CEO of a company that you've never met, nobody knows you, ask for an appointment and say, I need money. Mm-hmm. Because they're thinking, yeah, so do I.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to be crystal clear on what you're asking for, which means you have to be crystal clear on your goals. Okay? So the networking is a way to get to your goals. Most people are not clear about their goals. So in career development, we have 3 stages. We have self-assessment, career exploration, and then action plan. And there's one question that goes with each stage. So the self-assessment question is, who am I? Then we go to, where am I going for career exploration? And then how do I get there? So when it comes to a job search, networking is the way to get there. You have to decide what there is. So I wrote another article, and you can Google it. It's called Focus First, Network Second, which means you have to get crystal clear on your goals, and then you network. So when it comes to my fundraising campaign for the Alport Syndrome Foundation, I'm very clear on what I need to do. I need to raise $5,000 this year. I know how much I need to raise per month, and I know who's in these 3 circles of influence.
Now, so let's take from that first step, which is you need to know what you want to ask for.
You have to know what you want to ask for.
Now, how much do you ask for from an individual person? I mean, how do you decide? I think that's one reason people are not comfortable with asking, is because they don't know exactly how much they should ask, how much they should ask for.
What's really interesting, well, first of all, it really depends on your relationship. So if I look at my 3 types of donors, I have my $100 donors, 100 and above, I have my 50, and then I have my $25 donors, okay? So 150, so I have a small amount of 100, larger 50, and then a huge amount of 25, so it's like a pyramid. It all depends on my relationship. My sister gives me $100. Actually, my sister gives me about $300. My brother, he gives me, $200 or $300.
So maybe there's no real cookbook that says, okay,
well,
I want this.
I mean, the deeper your relationship, you would hope the more money they would give. But it's very interesting because the people that you don't think are going to give money,
they might.
They give tons of money, and the people that you're going to rely on them, don't.
Right,
And this,
right.
so let's apply this to a job search. I mean, somebody you think is really going to give you some job leads, advice, counsel, pass on your resume, they don't. And then this random person over here that you don't have as much relationship with, they have more of a generous spirit, and then they open doors for you.
Let me try this to add. Let's say you're looking for a job as a librarian.
Okay.
Think of nothing else. You could ask for a lead for a job, or you could ask for a job, or somewhere in between. I suppose there's a different way to ask each one. It doesn't cost the other person very much if they know a lead. I mean, all you have to do is say, I'm looking for a job, and if they know got an MLS and how much experience you have, you might have to tell them if they ask you. Then it's not going to cost them anything to say, well, you know, they have an opening over in Guilderland.
Right.
But you're not going to say, can I have a job? Maybe you wouldn't say that if they didn't have an opening. I mean, you need to do some homework. You might, if they wanted you, they could say, well, we have a job. So maybe it's better to just start with, I'm looking for a job.
Okay, so let's use this as an example.
See where I'm going?
Okay, so let's say I barely know you, and I want to be a librarian, and I send you an email that says, Richard, do you know if anybody that has any job openings in libraries? And you write back and you say, no, I'm sorry. If that's one way to handle it. A more diplomatic way to handle it would be, Richard, Joe Smith gave me your name, and you're best friends with Joe Smith. He said that you could help me. I need some advice about libraries. I was wondering if I could buy you a cup of coffee, breakfast, lunch, whatever you'd like. I just want to pick your brain. He said that you were a subject matter expert in this area. I'm wondering if you could help me. And you're going to say, sure.
Well, and because you mentioned another name, I probably have the coffee.
I name dropped in the first sentence.
And that's important to me, right, because it gives me a sense of connection.
Usually when you have coffee with somebody, it's going to be about an hour. So I'm going to come to you, and we're going to go to the diner down the street. I'm going to buy you breakfast, okay? It'll make you feel good. And I'm going to pick your brain.
Yeah, I read some people don't want to pay for the other person, which is not very gracious.
Don't get me started. So we go to the diner and we get to know each other. Now I've gone from, we skipped the email. We skipped the text message, we skipped the email, we went to the phone, and now we're in person. Now we have more of a relationship. It's hard to turn me down when we're in person. And now I'm putting you in the role of the subject matter expert. You're the mentor, I'm the mentee. Tell me everything you know about libraries, tell me about your network, can you look at my resume? And the whole time, you have a generous heart, so you're more than happy to do this.
Now,
you're giving to me.
Knowing me, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't have gone and had coffee with you, but I would have invited you to sit in a chair in my office, and it might not be right that moment. We might set a time, but I would have done that.
Right. And and time is money.
And I would think, well, I can't afford the time to go to the diner and then fool around paying and drive back, but I can afford exactly what time you need. I can sit in a chair with you and talk to you.
You gave to me, but you also gave to your friend who referred me to you, and you're actually paying back your friend because he loaned you the ladder.
It's possible.
Okay, so my friend Dave, who I do go to church with, I was having some lawnmower problems, and I kept borrowing his lawnmower, and I hate to do that, but I just sucked it up and said, my lawnmower's having problems. I need Dave's lawnmower. So he would, very generous person.
I have no problem.
He just give me the lawnmower, and then I bought this Cadillac lawnmower, and you know what happened? His lawnmower died.
And now he gets to borrow a Cadillac lawnmower.
It's like I almost drive it over to his house.
Right.
Do it. He does pick it up, but it's just that kind of thing. I feel indebted to him. It didn't cost him any money, and I filled it up with gas and that kind of thing.
And you're both better off.
Both better off.
Because you both got out of a problem.
But that's the only reason I like Dave, is for his lawnmower.
I don't think so.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. But the way I wake up in the morning is I'm constantly thinking like, well, how can I add to your life? And it could be even I could just be saying some smart aleck joke. You know, one of the things I do is I go to Hannaford, and I have a personal relationship with my checkout counter person, and because the 15 people that came up to her before have been negative or that kind of thing, and I create a conversation with her. I know where she goes to college. I know what class she's taken. We talk about her mom, and so, you know, I try to make people feel good that way.
So
I think it doesn't cost anything.
Let's do one more thing, maybe two more things. Any other psychological barriers you can think of that people might need help in order to push through some? You mentioned introversion.
Sure.
Maybe other things go along with that keep them from getting out there and being successful networkers. Maybe overbearing or preachy or all kinds of things.
I would classify myself as an outstanding climber, but when I first started, I was an amateur, and I was afraid. And that's the way everything happens. So before somebody can be an all-star, you look at somebody like Derek Jeter. I mean, can you imagine the first time he was in Little League and batted? He probably whiffed. You know, probably grounded out. Probably didn't do very well. They say it takes 10,000 hours to develop any kind of mastery. So a lot of people are averse to networking. One, because it's not their natural preference, and I can understand that and appreciate it. But two, they just don't do it a lot. And having my own business and being a single parent, if I don't network, I don't bring in clients, and if I don't bring in clients, I can't pay my child support. So I always think about my daughter and why I'm doing this. But for me, it's really not about bringing in clients. It's about building real relationships. And the way I run my business is the way I tell my clients that they should be doing their job search, which is high touch, which is the coffee talks and lunches and building relationships that way in person, and then high tech, which is the LinkedIn and the social networking. Because if we're not meeting people and shaking hands and breaking bread, so to speak, we're online. And so that's why having a good LinkedIn profile is very important. So it just takes practice, and after a certain point where you just keep doing it, it just becomes natural. I don't go to my church and go like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get 3 clients out of this. I just go there to build relationships. Right. And then clients or whatever happens out of that.
Isn't being able to listen maybe the most important thing that you can bring?
Yes.
Sometimes? Not always. But
I would say that listening is a lost art. A person's most basic psychological need is to feel heard. That's why something like solitary confinement is the worst thing that could happen to somebody, because nobody's listening. They're completely devoid of any kind of human contact. But when you're listening, what you're really saying is, I'm going to suspend my own agenda and let you get heard first. And if you listen to somebody who's talking a lot, it usually means they're craving attention. Now, I'm talking a lot because we have a television show.
You're supposed to talk a lot.
And I try to live by a principle called WAIT. WAIT stands for, why am I talking? Am I talking to educate? I'm talking to educate and inform. Are you talking to argue? Are you talking to entertain? Are you talking because you just like the sound of your own voice? But
that goes back to knowing what you're there for.
Right. So a lot of times when I go to a networking function, I just went to one today, and I went in and got my name tag, I got a drink, and I stood in the corner. And I looked at the room, and who was in the middle of the room? All the extroverts. Who was around the periphery? All the introverts. So within 35 seconds, somebody came up to me and started talking. And I listened. And then they said, oh, Dr. Tom, you're just great.
It's great to talk to you.
It's great to talk to you. Exactly.
They didn't say with, but they might have said to.
Like I said before, everything I offer is on the internet. But people want to feel heard, and that's why they keep making appointments.
I think another thing, what worked for me in getting involved in something is in terms of our library association. I didn't get involved until I tried to do something. Somebody needed a program, and I developed a program and presented a program. That got me within the group. I was contributing something, and it made me interested. So that seems like a good way to get started in any group. Try to get involved and help.
You have to go back to what your values are. What are your interests? I don't do it. I don't do anything that's not values driven. I mean, I'm not a mountain climber because my dad told me to do it. Although my dad, I'm sure, would be very proud of me doing this. I do it because I feel passionate about it. I see a larger role than just going and climbing is to create community. That is my larger goal, and that's what I want my legacy to be. Is that I die, which will probably take place on the Northway because some kid's going to be texting while I'm driving behind me and smash into me. I'll never die in the mountains. Is that people come to my funeral and said, Tom created a great community of rock and ice climbers. So that's what I'd like to see. And I think you have to look at it expansively. It's like, what is my larger contribution to the world? One of the interesting things about my daughter's fundraiser is, obviously I'm raising money for the Alport Syndrome Foundation. I have to ask people for money, but it's an opportunity for them to give to me. They feel good about giving, so I'm giving them an opportunity to do that. And
in a way, they're not giving it to you. They know they're giving it for a cause. A lot of people raise money for, we have a big diabetes thing coming up. Yeah. And a lot of people have that, so they can relate.
Yeah, and and it's extremely personal for me. This is a very small, rare disease that my daughter has. It's incurable. So people who care about me will give.
Right.
Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a speaking engagement on LinkedIn to a group of 30 people, and I won't get paid for it. But what I'll do is I'll say, my daughter has this rare disease. Would you please give a donation? I'll give out the envelopes and I'll get something out of it. But I have to ask.
Right.
And I actually have to physically give them an envelope.
Right.
They can't read your mind. So when you're networking, don't expect anyone to read your mind. Especially when you're job searching, people may know that you're out of work, but unless you say, do you know of 3 people that I could network with? Do you know of 3 organizations I could apply to? Do you know of 3 places, or do you know of 3 people I could send my resume to? You got to be specific in your ask. And you have to do the ask.
And so a lot of what we're talking about, just like that, is information. You're not asking somebody to hire you when they don't need you. You're asking them to help, for them to help you get involved in something so you can be a part of something and do something. And you're not asking to work and without, you're not asking for payment without work. You want to do something to help, and that will help you. So it's really all working together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm always thinking about the greater good. I could do these mountain climbs that I do every year. I could go out west and it would be a vacation, at least in my world. But I decided I can raise, I'm great at raising money. I can get $25 out of anybody. Why don't I tie what I love to do with something for my daughter and try to help this disease, and then also give other people an opportunity to give? It's
and to enjoy mountain climbing, perhaps.
Exactly. So I think we have to think about networking in a larger context. It's not about what can I get, or gosh, I just don't want to go out and meet people that I don't know. People have something to teach you, and I feel like I've got hundreds and thousands of people that have taught me about real living, finances, spirituality, athletics. People are constantly teaching.
Be a part of it.
That's right. Right.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, and I hope people will go out and network for life. And I think what people will learn is that networking will really enrich your life in more ways than one.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, that you become part of something just like Dr. Tom said, and that you have a great week. Take care.